Hello, welcome to Periscope. I'm David H. Steinberg, also known as Dave, and today I am going to be talking about my very first film called Slackers, which probably a few of you have seen, but probably not that many since it grossed $4.8 million in the box office. That's what we call a bomb in the industry. I'm going to be talking about selling that script way back when, and I'm also going to talk about the experience of taking notes. When you get a bunch of notes on a script and you don't agree with them, what do you do? And I'll tell you what, well, I'm not really going to tell you what you do. I'm going to tell you what you don't do because that's what I did, is the wrong thing. So I'm going to flip the camera around since I'm sure you don't want to look at me. What's going on here? Got my Twitter screen here, and here is, let's see, where's Slackers? There we go. So, it all started a long time ago in 1999. Got my posters on the wall. I'm gonna go around here. Well, maybe I should go over here into my desk of my bookcase of scripts and see if I can find, oh, look, there it is. The original Slackers spec script. Dated, oh, isn't that a coincidence? September 9th, 1999. It's all nines. That must be why I was so lucky when I sold that thing. So, I'll tell you a little story. I'm in film school. I moved to LA in 1997 to go to USC Film School. And I had, that summer, written my first script. And it was a broad comedy starring Chris Farley. He wasn't actually in it, and he didn't know about it, but in my mind, he was starring in it, and he was still alive at the time. And off of that one comedy script, I got my first agent. And Chris Farley then actually died right after I got an agent, so that became a sample. There was really no one else to attach to that project. But my agent at the time said to me, why don't you try writing something R-rated? It wasn't really my sensibility, but I thought I'd give it a shot. So I started writing a script that was based on, loosely based on my friends in college. And there were these really smart scammers that had a lot of different schemes to beat the system. And so I started writing the script in 1999. And that summer is when American Pie came out. So my script was already done before that, and it came, so American Pie comes out in August of 1999. It does $101 million. And then my script comes out 3 weeks later, which really is not very similar to American Pie in the first place, but people kind of lumped it together. It was a teen comedy, had some raunchy humor in it. And so we sent it out, and you got to remember, in 1999, things are going great. A little bit of my office, go out the window. The internet is booming. There's dozens and dozens of companies that are trying to get into the film business. There's people buying scripts left and right. Every day, people are selling scripts for $500,000, $1 million. It's the spec market boom. So if you're not writing scripts in 1999, you really missed out. So I write this script. It's an R-rated comedy called Slackers. American Pie hits $100 million. My script goes out 3 weeks later, and of course, yeah, thanks. Because, you know, sometimes people think things are starting to get really good now. Julie's telling me I had to point out that things were good back then. Yeah, okay, so my script goes out 3 weeks later. There's 30 buyers. People are passing the script around, and long story short, it's a huge bidding war, and the script sells for a ton of money. And not only that, it was a progress to production deal, which means that they had to make the movie. If they didn't make the movie within 9 months, I got to keep the money, and I got the script back. So, yeah, I know. Those were the deals that they made back in 1999. So 9 months later, they made the movie. But what happened in between? So the problem is when you sell your first script and someone pays you a lot of money for it, you are under the illusion that people think the script's good. That's not necessarily true. What it means is someone thinks that they can make this into a movie that'll make some money. They don't necessarily think your script's good. So when I sat down to take my first meeting to get notes on the script, I went into that meeting thinking they must love it. They paid all this money for it. They've agreed to make the movie just based on the original spec. And why would they ever want to change anything if they were going to pay so much money for it? So I went into that meeting with the completely wrong mindset. So I sat down with the producer, and now in my original script, these guys were super smart scam artists that had figured out ways to beat the system. And it actually, I mean, I'm a little embarrassed about this. It actually originally took place at Yale. It's like literally mentioned in the script that they go to Yale. But whatever. So the first note that the producer says to me is, we love the idea of these guys being scam artists, but couldn't they have a lot more scams going on? Like maybe they've got a bank of computer monitors in their dorm room, and there's a scheme going on in Tokyo where they're trying to manipulate the stock market, and they've got something going on in New York, and they've got things going on left and right, and it's this whole huge thing. And I was I just didn't know what to say. I was just completely baffled. What the hell was he talking about? And so the problem is that I didn't just think it. I actually said out loud in my very first meeting on my very first script I ever sold in the industry to the producer, "That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard." And that's what ended my career. Well, I actually didn't end my career 100%. I got it back, but it took years and years to recover from that one statement. When I said, "That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard," I got fired. I got fired from my own project because I didn't do what they asked me to do. Yeah, it's pretty dumb. I didn't know that that was a dumb thing to say. Obviously, it seems obvious now, but at the time, you have to put yourself in my mindset. I thought that they loved it as is. Why would they have greenlit the movie? But anyways, they gave me a whole set of notes. That was an awkward moment where I said it was stupid. And he said, "Well, no, hear me out." And he tried to persuade me why it would be hilarious to have them be having some Tokyo stock scheme. And so, their assistant wrote down all the notes and they sent it home with me. And so if you didn't think I was dumb enough then when I told the producer that his idea was stupid, here's what's even more stupid. So under the deal, when you write a script, you have to do, you get to do the first rewrite, or you have to or get to, I don't know which way you want to call it. But I got the set of notes and I did the notes that I thought made sense. And the rest of them I just didn't do. So I turned in that first revision with a memo. And the memo said, "Here's why I didn't do the rest of the notes. Here's note number 1 that didn't make any sense, and this conflicts with this, and this character wouldn't be like that." And I just went through piece by, and by the way, I guess I should preface the story saying I had just quit being a lawyer, which probably was not the right mindset going into a notes meeting, because I wrote a 10-page memo just explaining why I wasn't going to do anything. I did, probably 10% of the notes. I'm like, this note, I feel like that could work, and I'm going to do that one note. But these other 9 notes, they really don't make sense. They're not logical. They don't blah, 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 blah. And so I turned in the script with a 10-page memo, and then I got fired the next day. And the producer said, "Who the fuck is this guy? Why is he not doing it?" And by the way, I kind of blame a little bit my agent for not telling me how to take that meeting. No one explained to me what that meeting was supposed to be like. So I just kind of went in on my own and I winged it, and I fucked up. So they fired me, and they hired another guy to rewrite my script. I didn't even know that happened. I mean, I'm such an idiot. I didn't know that they would just have someone else do it. I'm like, well, how can someone else work on your script? You spend all this time working on a script. Why would they have a different person do it? Well, the reason they have a different person do it is because they don't need you anymore because they have your script. And the different person will do what they ask them to do and get paid to do it, where you're being an asshole and being difficult. And so the moral of the story is, if you don't want to play ball with people who buy your script, then they will just fire you and get someone else to do it. So that leads us to, and by the way, when I got back that first rewrite from the guy who did that rewrite, I was heartbroken. I mean, crushed. Because I had my one script, and I thought it was perfect, and I thought I laid out pretty carefully in this 10-page memo why the script was already perfect and why all their notes were stupid. And then they not only fired me, but then they got some guy to do exactly what I thought was stupid. And by the way, that's the movie. And whatever, 15 years later, I've learned to love the movie. It's got its moments. But when that first script came back with another writer's name on it, I was like, holy shit, how did I let this thing get away from me? How did I screw up so badly? And what I learned, and it took me a lot of years to figure out, is that you have to strike a balance. You have to do what they ask you to do because they're paying you to do that thing. You don't have to do it the way they ask it, but you have to at least try to do what they're asking you to do. Or you can just get fired and never work and quit screenwriting and go back to doing whatever you were doing before. So that's your choice. But assuming you want to keep working in the business, you have to try to do their notes. And it's a little bit difficult. The analogy I always thought of was, yeah, I still have to remind myself of this every day. So you sell your car to some guy, and you say you've got like a vintage, whatever, some awesome car. It's a Mustang or something, and and you sell it to someone because you need the money or you bought a new car or whatever. But it's like, say it's a pink Cadillac, and then the person buys it, but the car's perfect. It's a pink Cadillac, and the person buys it and they want to paint it black, and you say, I'm selling it to you, but you can't paint it black because it's already perfect being pink, and they say, fuck you, I'm buying the car, I can paint it however I want. In fact, I can just put it in a trash compactor and like turn it into a small cube if I want to, and I can pretend it's like a Borg ship. There's nothing you can do when I buy your car to prevent me from doing whatever I want to it. Well, that's the same thing with scripts. Once you sell a script, it's theirs. It's their script. It's got your name on it, you have some rights, but it's their script. If they want to turn it into a piece of shit, there's nothing you can do to stop them. There is, however, something you can do to try to help that to not happen, and that is to try to make the notes work. So how do you try to make their notes work? Well, I feel like I'm going to say something that you've probably heard a million times before, but sometimes when a producer or studio executive or someone gives you a note, they don't know how to solve the script, because otherwise they'd be a writer and they would just do it themselves. All they know is they're having an emotional reaction, not necessarily a logic reaction, but it's usually an emotional reaction to something that's wrong in the script. They say things like, we need to raise the stakes, or the third act, there's no ticking clock. And what they're saying is, there's no ticking clock. That's studio speak for like, it's dragging on and I'm getting bored and I feel like there needs to be more tension. If they say that there needs to be stakes, you raise the stakes, that means I'm feeling like it's not exciting enough, or that the downside of the hero not accomplishing his goal is not that big a deal. Why does he need to say, who cares? So what the point is that these notes are triggering an emotional response from the person who's giving you the note, and they're trying to manifest that note in language that they don't know how to use because they're not writers. So they're taking an emotional concept and trying to make it an intellectual point and giving it to you. So you have to do is untranslate it and give it back to them once you've translated it back to the original emotion that it was. So studio executive is reading a script and he feels like your character arc is not working because he doesn't go on a big enough journey. It's like they might say it's too flat or something like that. And so you have to unpack the language they do in the script. He might actually give you the note saying like, I feel like the second act can be condensed. And you're like, I don't understand. Why are you saying to condense the second act? That doesn't make any sense. It's because the person giving the note is having an emotional response and they're trying to give you a semi-solution in the language that you speak, but they don't speak that language. So what you have to do is throw out the execution of the note that they're giving you and turn it back into the emotion that they're experiencing. So when they say something, and you can give them, they give you studio speak, you can give them screenwriter speak. They say, I feel like we need to like raise the stakes. You can say something like, what I'm hearing from you is that you feel like the third act's not exciting enough. Is that what you're trying to say? And you're trying to put it back into an emotional point of view so that you can address the note. Because if you just literally take the note and say, I feel like page 50 is, the scene on page 50 doesn't need to be there, can you take it out? That's their solution. But you want to give your solution for what their real note is. And so basically the point of the story is you want to take the emotion they're experiencing from the problem with the script, and you want to untranslate whatever the stupid solution they came up with back into the original emotion, and then you want to address it in a different way that works for you as a writer, and since you know the script better, that makes sense from a storytelling standpoint, and give it back to them. And 9 out of 10 times, they're going to be like, wow, this is exactly what I was going for. The third act was dragging, you amped up the tension, you raised the stakes, you did all these things. You didn't do any of the things that specifically I asked you to do because you did it in a different way that's even better. And they'll sometimes say that. Say, you know what, this is even better than the solution that I had. And that's why a lot of studio executives will say things like, here's the bad version, because they don't know what the good version is. Sometimes they don't say, here's the bad version, but that's actually a good piece of advice. Just attach that to everything that they say. Whenever they give you a note, say, in your mind, here's the bad version, but, and then there's the note. So everything they say is the bad version. What you're trying to do is get back to the original note so you can give them the good version. So that's what I got about slackers, selling slackers, screwing up on slackers, getting fired off of slackers, and how to take notes from people who don't know how to give notes. And thanks for tuning in, especially Julie, who's my biggest fan apparently of my 3 fans. And I will catch you guys next time. Thanks.